why do you feel like this has so much to say about, the climate we're in as far as who's watching us?
Well, I think, for anyone that loves Luther or anyone that hasn't met Luther yet, there's one thing about the Luther franchise or world is that it's always relatable crime. It's stuff that people go, oh, wow, okay, there's a guy under my bed. Whoa, you know what I mean? Like really relatable crimes. And I think as we were thinking about the amplification into a filmscape, cyber cybercrime just felt like a really easy, low-hanging fruit to expand on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, one of the things that is great about technology is that it connects you and I right on long distances. It
Yeah.
allows, us to create things that we need help with AI. You can create and imagine it, stuff that you wouldn't even think of.
Mm-hmm.
But it also leaves us a little vulnerable, right? Because people will use that same technology for bad business. I see people being used in deep fakes in a way that's very negative to them and so on and so forth. And,
Yeah.
I think coming into this film, if you've never met Luther, you're going to see a subject that is relatable. You're going to see a man, a character, a detective that cares.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it was so fun to see Luther face off with Andy Serkis' villain, who was like such a dark villain. I mean, not to say the franchise hasn't had dark and grittiness, but like this was a dark villain. But another dynamic I liked was the dynamic between Luther and Cynthia Erivo's character of Odette. Why do you think she was perfect to have Luther face off with before they kind of realized they had to work together?
I mean, I just love that, she's the direct opposite of him, but equally as powerful and, a phenomenal female character to, take over from his role as DCI. And, Cynthia hasn't played a character like this. So it was great to just watch her disappear into Odette, unbeknownst that, she has a lot in common with Odette, coming from where she comes from and just being able to be that person in her natural self. But she's an amazing actor and has a lot of sort of depth and power.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I cannot wait for more people to see this film. I want to know, was it an easy or hard decision being able to come into an established universe, a universe or franchise that has so many fans, but playing a vital new character in a universe that's already been built?
I mean, I there are two sides to that. I mean, obviously there are huge. It's got a huge fan base, and I mean, I'd always loved it. I've always loved the tone and the feel that Luther had as a TV series, and Idris is someone who I've admired, and especially in that role, he's just superb. But at the same time, knowing that this was going to be a movie and was going to seek to bring a new audience and an international global audience, and it be a bigger platform, it's a blockbuster movie, it's got scale, all of those things. I just thought this will, the dark kind of the grittiness of the TV series. From what I could see in the script, I could see that was going to come into a much bigger canvas, So and the relationship of that would work really well, I think.
Yes, yes. And you, of course, you're no stranger to playing, villain roles. But this guy right here, he like takes that to like a whole new level. Like immediately, like one of the first scenes of like the fire, I was like, this is some dark stuff. I know Luther's dark and gritty, but like we're getting really dark and gritty with this. So how do you think, this, like you said, like I said, you've played villains before, but how does this character in particular stand out and is different from maybe some of the more darker and grittier roles that you've had prior in your career?
Well, I think what appealed to me finally about this, and I nearly didn't do it because it was sort of very, very dark, and I wondered whether I should go down this route. But what did appeal to me was that David Roby, the character of David Roby, is part of something much, much bigger. That the real monster in this film or this story is the world of the dark web, the internet, the AI, deep fake,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that we are growing to become addicted to, all the devices that we have in our house, all of that stuff, the shaming that goes on, the cancel culture, providing platforms for all manner of voices. Look, the internet can be used for incredible things, very good things, and then it can be used in bad ways. But the point is, we've all literally abjured responsibility and gone, I'll have it. I'll take it. If I'm being watched, I'll buy it. It's like if I'm being listened to, I'll buy it. So that and being part of the monster that is that was what appealed to me. And I thought, well, this is going to make for a very interesting, movie villain.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I cannot wait for more people to see this film.
Thank you, man.
Right, thank you. Have a good one. Was it always the idea if Luther would be revisited again? Would that be, a film, or would that be a continuation of the television series, like another series? But ultimately, what inspired the decision to make this into a movie as opposed to going back to TV?
Well, I think we knew that we wanted to make a movie, but we also knew that it had to be at the right time. And that partly meant making sure that the character was in the right kind of place. Because we didn't just want to do a big TV show. Because why just do a big TV show? So really the season 5, which is we all worked on together, was the end of the story of Detective Chief Inspector John Luther. We'd taken that particular arc of that character in that format, in that genre, as far as we can, which kind of meant that it was an ending in one sense. It was the end of the TV show. But the end of the TV show put the character in such a place that we knew that we could start to tell slightly different kinds of stories. So that was the natural leaping off point.
Yeah, yeah. And not to say that Luther has not been gritty, because it has, but this film in particular, it has a certain darker tone, and like this, between Andy Serkis' villain character, there's just a lot, deeper, I think, it's to, and it also talks about, like technology and AI, et cetera, et cetera. Was this the plan if, the show were to get revisited in the form of a film? Was this idea, a storyline, always the plan, or like how did you all conceive the storyline for this film as time went on, that you knew that you wanted to do something else with Luther?
When Neil I remember an early conversation I had with Neil, and we were talking about fear. We were talking about primal fear. And I was sitting in my front room at home, and I have a window out to the garden at night. And I said, "Oh, Neil, can you imagine a killer sitting in the garden looking into my house at night?" I couldn't see that they were there, but they could watch everything that I was doing, that my family was doing. And Neil said, "Well, a contemporary serial killer doesn't necessarily need to go into your garden. He's in your home. Yeah. He's watching you through your television camera. He's listening to you through your smart speaker." Now, that was my introduction to the story that Neil was exploring. But the lovely thing is that Neil plays with our primal fear, and there's a timelessness to that. But this seemed particularly present.
Yeah,
go ahead. Watching.
No, I was gonna say, like, after I screened the film, like, I was looking at the camera to buzz people into my apartment building. I was like, wait, is this? I was like, do we need all this surveillance? And it makes you think about surveillance in different ways, because I think I was talking to Andy about this as well. It's just like, as time goes on, it's just like we just kind of get more and more just like used to being surveilled to a certain aspect, when you're just like, hey, it just comes with the territory. But like, surveillance versus safety, and like, is there a difference? What's the difference?
I think the terrible thing and the really frightening thing is that on the whole, we have forgotten we're doing it. It's become such a part and parcel of the warp and weft of everyday life. Yeah. That when we sit down at a laptop and do whatever we're doing on that laptop at that particular time, we have forgotten that somebody somewhere is watching in some way. We leave the apartment, somebody somewhere is watching in some way. Get on the subway, somebody somewhere is watching in some way. All of our lives. And I think many of us have this kind of deep set anxiety that it's the state that's watching us. And to some extent, it is. I mean, in a sense, I think that might be worse in the UK, which is the most surveilled country in the world. But what really frightens me is that it's not the intelligence agencies, it's not the military, it's not the government. It's somebody like David Roby who was able to personalize and use this kind of all of the available shame, all of those secrets, which is just there waiting to be harvested and used by somebody like him. I find that scary.
That's definitely the scary part about it. That's the scariest part about it. Well, thank you both so much for chatting with me, and I can't wait for more people to see this film.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. It's nice to meet you.